Good evening, this is Sue for PMTV at the Holiday Inn to attend the Eastern Seaboard Farewell Dinner for the British Ambassador to Thailand, His Excellency Asif Ahmad. This event is organized by the British, American and Australian Chambers of Commerce and sponsored by many organizations and companies, including Pattaya Mail Media Group. In a moment, I'll be talking to some of these dignitaries, including the ambassador himself, so please stay tuned. I'm sitting now with Simon Lundy, the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce, Thailand. Hello.
Hello. Very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It seems that tonight is quite special, isn't it?
It's a big event, yes. We have the Ambassador Asif Ahmad, coming down to give his farewell talk to the members.
Do you know what he's going to talk about?
No idea, but it'll be fun. He's a very good speaker.
So he's leaving, huh?
Yes, he's finished his, I think, August the 12th, and his replacement comes the same day.
Okay. So you've organized quite a big event for him. What can we expect?
Well, I think we'll have a very nice dinner. We'll have a couple of speakers, including the ambassador, of course, and a great chance to network and meet the community.
Who are your sponsors tonight?
I'm glad you asked that question. I have my cheat sheet here, because we have 7 sponsors. I don't want to leave anyone out. We have Finnair, MBMG Group, Pattaya Mail, thank you very much, Colliers, thank me, Defence International Security Services, and Tesco Lotus.
All right, so you've been going to the Chamber, of course, doing your job. What's new?
In the Chamber, well, there's been a lot of activity this year. It's been a very busy year. We've had a number of high-profile visits from the UK. Several ministers have visited. Most recently, we had Lord Marland from the UK, who is leading a delegation of British businessmen to Myanmar.
Okay, so you went with them?
Yes, yes.
So what's your opinion?
I think in a nutshell, from our perspective, sitting here in Bangkok, Myanmar represents a fantastic opportunity for Thai business. And that means businesses in Thailand, whether British, Thai or other nationalities. Because as investors come in, they come to Thailand, they come to Bangkok. It's the ideal place to set up, to explore the opportunities that Myanmar offers.
So that was a delegation of about 30 people, you said?
That's correct, about 30 big businesses.
How many people have showed their interest that they would actually go and open their offices there?
It's a little early to say, but I think a lot of people are waiting for the new foreign investment law, which is due to be enacted in the next couple of months. Although some, of course, have already invested in the oil and gas sector, the energy sector.
And Myanmar seems to be ready for it, the infrastructure-wise and everything?
Well, that's the big question. The infrastructure is not ready, and the big constraint they have, of course, is they've been practically isolated for the last generation or two. So there's a real need for building capacity in the system, and that's where I think the international bilateral organizations will come in.
That's the foreign investor to come with the facility and infrastructure as well.
Indeed.
Along with the business that they want to do there, right?
Yes.
So you are a new chairman to the chamber. How new are you, or how old are you?
How new am I? I'm 6 months new. I've been in the chamber for 6 months.
You've been enjoying it?
I love it. It's a great role. It's very. There's a lot to do, and I think the British community, the membership is quite large. We have over 500 members, and over 80% of our members are SMEs. And so their needs may not be the same as some of the big multinational companies. But it's a very diverse membership, so there's always a challenge.
Yeah, especially that you have your own company to run as well, the Colliers, right?
Yes.
And so how do you juggle, how do you manage both?
With difficulty. They're both very demanding jobs, and I enjoy them both. And yes, you have to juggle, you have to find the optimum solution. I can't pretend I've managed to do that yet, but it's a learning curve.
How's your own business doing?
Well, Colliers is doing very well, thank you. This year, the first half of this year, has been quite strong for the property market. I wouldn't call it boom conditions, but a gradual upward ascent, which is always pleasant. And we've been growing quite strongly. I think we're now up to about 200 staff.
What's the future? Any vision?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, our vision is really to focus on the...
But just in case our audience doesn't know what Colliers do.
Yes. Thank you. Well, Colliers is a property consultancy. It's an international consultancy with over 500 offices around the world. So it's one of the largest property consultancies in the world, and it covers both transactional services, agency, brokerage, as well as professional services, including research, valuation and management.
It should be good right now because the property business is just really booming again.
Well, Pattaya is doing extremely well. Pattaya has become a bit of a hot property in itself. I think going back a few years, it was quite rare to see Thais from Bangkok buying property in Pattaya. But now it's all the rage, and properties are selling very well in Bangkok.
Actually, it started with the Bangkok people buying. This was like some 20 plus years ago. It was the Thais in Bangkok that actually started to buy, but now it's more. And then it became more foreigners, and now it's back to locals again.
That's right. It's come full circle. Absolutely.
Anything you'd like to add, Simon?
Well, I think on behalf of the Chamber, I'd just like to thank Paddy Mail for giving us this opportunity to say a few words, and I hope you enjoy the evening. And I encourage all of those of you watching to join the British Chamber. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The great honor to be standing now here with the UK Ambassador to Thailand, His Excellency Asif Ahmad. Hello, sir.
Hello, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. But it's so sad that you're leaving.
Well, I've done 8 years of Thailand, one way or another, 6 of them from the UK and then 2 great years here. So maybe I should give somebody else a chance of enjoying the beauty of the country.
But you've been here barely 2 years in your post here. Is it normal for 2 years, or is it that you decided to go?
No. Normally somebody would serve 3 to 4 years here, and ideally 4, because we invest in language training and the like. The situation in my case was that the previous ambassador left halfway through his posting and left a gap. And before he'd chosen to leave, we'd already appointed somebody to take over in the normal period. So Mark Kent, who takes over from me, was actually appointed to Thailand before I was. But when the gap appeared, the Foreign Secretary asked me when I was lying on a beach in Bali, would I like to go to Thailand? So I came back home, packed my bags, 8 days notice, and have had 2 very interesting and challenging years here.
You left Bali for here?
Well, Bali on holiday for here. I was the regional director for Southeast Asia and Australasia before I came here. So I've had a reasonable amount of dealings with Thailand. I also came here in April, May of 2010 to help run the embassy for a period during the protests. So there's a little bit of, if you like, experience there that I could draw on.
That's an experience you don't get every day.
And certainly don't want it again.
Okay, so you're leaving Thailand. Do you feel that you're leaving something behind, unfinished business?
No, because it's a little bit self-flattering for ambassadors to identify periods of a country's history through their own term. We are immaterial. The country's life goes on. People who live and work here, Britons who invest here, that's the real sort of issue, not whether I'm here for a period and what I've done. I hope I've achieved something in my time here on the business side, on the welfare of our citizens, and really sort of delivering on the government's priorities, which is recovering our economic prosperity. I go back from here to the UK to learn a foreign language for 12 months, and then I'm back out in Asia, not a country not far from here, which I can't name yet, for 4 years, hopefully. So, in a way, I'm not really going to be saying goodbye.
What would you say would be an initiative that you have done here that you find it to be most successful?
Well, there are many I could recall. I mean, the first one is that last year, the single biggest investment in the UK from anywhere in the world was from Thailand. Sahaviria Steel invested in the Teesside Redcar steel plant. That deal by itself will save 1,500 jobs and will mean that the UK will export £1 billion worth of steel into Thailand each year. That will wipe out the trade deficit we have. So our total trade from 5 billion a year will go up to 6 billion a year. Now that is massive. Then you look at other things. You look at the way in which our own embassy is growing. When I came here, we had 120 staff. By the time I leave, we'll have 150. That's because we're investing people in many areas on immigration, on home offices, fight against crime, on international security issues, and as well as Thai politics and regional politics. And then lastly, also in some of our consular activities. So basically, in a situation where we're having to make cuts in our network in other parts of the world, in Europe in particular, in Thailand, we're actually expanding, which is a real sign of where we think Britain's future lies.
These are something you can be proud of. What about the frustrations? Have you had any about, for example, things that you wanted to do your way and make it work, but it doesn't for some reason?
No, but our job is to overcome frustration, because personally you can be as frustrated as you like, but that's neither here nor there. You've got to be resilient and look at things. Some things take a long time. What you've got to do is just work away at your contacts, and I've really spent a lot of time here dealing with members of the royal family, the military, the Privy Council, the opposition politicians, and indeed the government. The fact that as I leave I can invite the entire top team of Abhisid's last cabinet to my house for lunch the other day, and next week I'm going to have 11 of the government's ministers and former ministers there. It shows that we have these working links, and I can pass those on. Yesterday I had an encounter in our house with Thailand's most wealthy business person, and he's looking at substantial investments in the UK, I hope. Now, for me, it would be very frustrating to say, well, why couldn't these deals come to fruition right now? Because when I sent my last message back to London about the opportunities here, I said we've got £5 billion worth of business we could be dealing with now. I get enough satisfaction from knowing that these things are warmed up and ready to go. It's for others to follow through. So in my job, I don't think we can personalize frustration in the way others might do.
In your case, would be from the political situation or not?
Well,
is that part of it?
Our challenge was to do a number of things. Firstly, to say very loud and clear in Thailand that democracy is better than military rule, that any political party that wins an election fairly should be given a chance to govern, and the opposition should hold them to account. We also think that big issues in Thailand need to be addressed, whether it's the energy shortages that are looming, labour issues, issues of discriminating sometimes against foreign businesses. Now, these are things that we want to work at. And the trouble is that if you've got day-to-day politicking getting in the way, then it's very difficult for a government to take these things seriously. And it's in Thailand's interest as much as ours to make sure that these things are addressed. Some of them really are important to British citizens. I mean, for example, if you're a business here, you can only lease a commercial property for 30 years. In my opinion, that's way too short. It needs to be 99 years in my view, and maybe I think the government is about to give way and give us something like 60. There are issues about work permits. The fact that somebody who's been working here for years in bona fide businesses has to go every year and get their work permit renewed. We had the ridiculous situation until very recently where English language teachers for reputable organizations were having to do visa runs. Now that is really just undignified for somebody who's trying to do a great job in Thailand teaching a language that is essential for Thailand's future in the region and as it interacts with other partners.
Personally, how do you think, which direction is Thai politics going?
Well, if I really understood Thai politics, I'd be a very rich man. I think what is good is that both sides or all sides have tried extreme measures and they haven't worked. So hopefully they'll see sense and revert to what I call as normal politics. Win an election on the basis of what you promised to the people, be accountable for what you promised to the people, and then if you haven't delivered, then the people should vote them out.
As an ambassador, you know, I mean, you have concerns for your own people, your citizens in
Yes.
Thailand. And not so long ago, you gave an interview about your frustrations about the flooding, how the government handled the flooding situation last year.
Yes.
So how do you feel now about it? Because some people said that, no, an ambassador shouldn't be talking like that, while others actually praised you for being brave and honest and all that. How do you see it?
Typically, when you give a newspaper interview, the headline says something different to what the text actually says. What I actually said was that any government, whether it was the UK or Thai, would have struggled to deal with a crisis of that magnitude. The people of Thailand were extremely resilient, and I take my hat off to them, the way they reacted and how they recovered. They did the same in the tsunami. What I said was frustrating was that donor countries like the UK, Canada, the United States, we can trigger a huge amount of resource, physical as well as cash, to assist any country that's in difficulty, but we need that country to make an official request. Japan did it after Fukushima, Australia did it with their floods, China after the earthquakes. This is not some sort of national pride issue. Because if you don't, what happens is that good and well-meaning people and governments turn up with all sorts of stuff at different airports. It's either it's the wrong stuff or you haven't cleared how you're going to get in through customs, whether it's really truly needed or not. Now, if it's coordinated, then you actually do a better job. So the frustration is actually that we could have done more than what we did. But we did provide medical expertise to make sure the disease were under control. My Dutch friends provided them with water experts on flooding. So I think those are really important. So no, it's not. I wouldn't say it was that. I think where I do have a sense that people sort of read the press and wonder what I'm up to, particularly when it's to do with British citizens, I'm very clear about what the British government and the ordinary taxpayer can do for a British citizen who gets into some difficulty and what we can't. And it may not be popular, but we can't get somebody better medical treatment than they would otherwise get if they weren't insured. We can't get them out of jail. We can't change the outcome of a court case, however important that might be. Yes, we can help with crises and on information. We can deal with emergency passports if they get into trouble. And then when they're victims of crime and some very serious crimes, we pursue them right to the end. But I think many of our citizens find that maybe we're sort of sitting around doing nothing other than gin and tonic and that sort of cocktail world. Well, I can tell you, I can't speak for other ambassadors in Thailand. I have never been to an event where the connection with the UK was not clear. I'm not in for freebies and dinners for the sake of it. I'm working for
That's how I read it anyway in the interview. I didn't read it in a negative way at all, so that was fine. Now, getting into a broader scope, we're going to be part of the ASEAN soon.
Sure.
So how do you see this future?
It's a great opportunity for Thailand. It's also a great danger for Thailand. If it really deals with it well, which is to sort out the way in which foreign businesses are treated, treat the Burmese workers here much better than they do, otherwise they'll go back and work in their country, which is getting more prosperous. It can look at things that they're good at, and it's a very diverse and well-balanced economy. So I think there's a huge chance for Thailand. But English language is vital for Thailand. They're slightly behind the curve on this, because the language of ASEAN officially is English. The British Council is also helping with language teaching, and we're about to, on Monday, we'll have the first wave of students who are going to come and try and spend a bit of their holiday time with some financial assistance from the Thai government, but they're paying their own airfares to teach English face-to-face as language assistants alongside a Thai teacher. And if that program grows, I think it will be our contribution too.
Okay. Now, who's your successor?
My successor is Mark Kent, a good friend of mine. He was formerly ambassador to Vietnam. He spent the last 20 months learning to read and write Thai, and he's impressive because I test him. Every now and then I see an article in Thai and I say, what does this say? And he tells me what it does, and I check it with my other staff and say, does this make sense? And actually it's amazing. He's really picked up the language very well.
If there's just one advice, most valuable advice you can give him about staying in Thailand and being in this post, what would it be?
I think to have the energy that is needed. This is a busy post, with 840,000 British tourists, 51,000 residents, with the amount of trade we do and the ups and downs, natural disasters. You need a lot of energy in reserve, and if you have that, then things are fine. If you're lacking in energy, then I think it'll overcome you.
What's your next plan now?
Next plan now is to see through the Olympics, then to go home, have 2 weeks of holiday, see my grandson again, who's very angry with me because I've left him. He keeps shouting at planes because he thinks I left on a plane and I should come back on a plane. Then I'm going to start learning a new language, which will be great fun. To be a student again at my age, I think is fascinating.
You should always learn a new language, no matter how old we are. I think that trains the brain every now and then.
Absolutely. It's a pity that I didn't have a chance to learn Thai in the 8 days notice that I was given.
All right, thank you very much. I don't want to keep you because people are waiting for you, for your speech and all the fun that we're going to have, All right, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best.
Very kind of you.
Thank you.
Without further ado, I'd like to introduce His Excellency Ambassador Asif Ahmad.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly flattered that you've invited me back to Pattaya, even more so because you've had to pay real money to be here. And I know that 900 baht can buy you a lot more enjoyment in Pattaya than I can give you. Now, working abroad is quite a dangerous pastime. It can often be misunderstood because, things get lost in translation. But, things can go wrong in Britain too. You know that I've been here quite a few times myself to look at the work of our consulate. And the last time I came here was to open the office after we'd recruited a new vice consul and consular assistant. But because of staff changes in Pattaya, we're going to have to reduce the number of days. We're going to be open for to 3 days now until we sort out a future. But colleagues from Bangkok will come and run the consulate, so hopefully there'll be not too much of a deterioration in our services. Now, we've been working with them on a number of things, some of them serious. For example, helping teachers identify potential victims of paedophiles, and we're working with the police here to catch these vile perpetrators. I have zero tolerance when it comes to this issue. And we are working also very closely with the Royal Thai Police to track down Britons who think they can turn Thailand into a new Costa del Crime. Staff from the British Police are being added to our embassy to break up and disrupt this growing threat that is emerging now in Thailand. Now, as British citizens, fine, upright citizens, business people, the last thing you want here is a den of British thieves. With the Thai police, we've secured the arrests of a number of drugs and people traffickers, and the partnership is really starting to work. Now, I'd be more happy, though, if the Thai police enforced laws that protect citizens, their citizens, and ours. Because as far as I'm concerned, the police can fine or arrest anyone, British or Thai, if they ride a motorbike without a helmet or charge people for reckless and drunk driving. Sadly, Thai police, in my view, are not as good as they should be in dealing with crimes against tourists. Follow-through on incidents like rape and murder is well short of the standards we want and expect. The instinct, sadly, is to pretend nothing bad has happened because investigations, when they do take place, are slow and at times half-hearted. And there's a fear that bad news will frighten off tourists. In my view, ignoring crime is even more scary. Because if you arrest people, prosecute them and jail them, that builds confidence in law and order. And on the beaches, the jet ski problem has not yet been solved. But the mayor's office assured me today that within the next 2 months, they're going to come up with a scheme to license the jet skis and have them insured so that they actually operate better. Now, I'm not sure whether this will work instantly, but in my view, it's not rocket science. Everybody knows how many people are operating these schemes and who the bad guys are in this trade. And in Bangkok, I've left senior ministers in no doubt that there's a real need to address different scams and practices that have damaged the image that Thailand is building up through its amazing Thailand campaign. It's an expensive campaign, but it unravels the minute people report these sort of incidents. Now, we've put together a group of ambassadors led by the Dutch to talk to the Thai authorities with one voice. And quite simply, with Burma opening up and with choices in other parts of the region, Western tourists, the ones who really spend the serious money here, are going to go to resorts where they're more likely to get a sunburn than getting their fingers burnt. So those of you who rely on tourism to make a living, surely you want quality, not quantity. Now, business is doing its part, and the Thai economy has been resilient despite the floods and dysfunctional politics. I don't want to make predictions about where Thai politics will head next, but the feeling that I get is that all sides are a little bit punch drunk. The military, the Democrats, Pheu Thai, the shirts of all colours have thrown all their punches, and no one really has emerged with a knockout blow. And maybe, just maybe, politics for politics' sake will give way to governing the country properly and delivering real outcomes for the people of Thailand. Because we, in Britain, need a vibrant Thai economy. We remain the largest investor from the EU in this country. Two-way trade in goods and services between our two countries topped £5 billion last year. Our £1 billion trade deficit with Thailand will be wiped out in the next 12 months because of one deal alone, which is the investment that Sahaviria Steel made in Teesside. This was the largest investment last year by any foreign country into the UK. That says something about Thailand. Now, we're going to need British business to succeed in growing markets like Thailand and the region. And if you in this room are in a business that adds value to the UK, we will work with you in the same way that we've worked with Sahaviria and anybody else who comes through our door. Now, I leave Thailand in 3 weeks' time. And in my 8 years of dealing with this country, 2 of them as ambassador have certainly been eventful. From the tsunami of 2004 to the rise and fall of Thaksin, the yellow shirts at the airport, passengers stranded in Thailand because we had a volcano go off in Iceland, the red shirts camped around our embassy singing songs, the elections, floods, all of these events could have knocked the socks off Thailand and truly off course. And yet, amazingly, this is Thailand. It just keeps coming back, bouncing back from all adversity. The people keep smiling and life goes on. And that's what I really go away with. Great admiration for the resilience of the people of Thailand. Admiration for the way in which families hold together. Admiration also for how old people are treated here with care and respect. Now, my good friend Mark Kent will take over from me, and he spent the best part of 2 years learning to speak and read Thai. He started learning the language in London and then spent time in Bangkok, Khon Kaen, and Chiang Mai. So he's more likely to be understood in Walking Street than you are likely to be. He was ambassador to Vietnam before coming here, so he knows the region reasonably well. And I hope that you will be as generous to him as you have been to me. Well, as for me, what am I going to do? Well, when I finish here, I'm not coming back to Thailand to sell beer. Nor will I have time to pick up golf and pick my favorite caddy for the day in all the splendid courses that you have around the country. I can't see for myself coming back and cadging free meals and hotel stays off friends. Tropical Bert, you're safe. I'm not setting up Ahmed's tea shop next to your place. And there's very, very little chance of me following Jimmy Howard and playing rugby here in Pattaya. Because believe me, I'm no rat catcher. Instead, I'll go back to London for 12 months and become a student again. Wear my t-shirt, jeans, grow my hair long again if I can grow it. And I'll learn a new language. And then I'll return for another posting in Asia as ambassador for 4 years. I can't tell you which country I'm going to yet because the head of the state of the country that I'm going to has not actually replied yet to the Queen's letter. But I can assure you that the Queen has actually put it in the post. So all I can say is to quote the words of the Terminator and say, I will be back. Now I want to thank the British Chamber in the Eastern Seaboard, not just for organising this event, but for being a model chamber, not just here but in Bangkok. A chamber that knows how to mix business and leisure. And I want to say to the many good-hearted people I've met in this part of Thailand, thank you for caring for your neighbours. I want to pay particular tribute to the Royal British Legion, who in my view have done their part to make this part of Thailand a land fit for heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, in years to come, if you see me in Civvy Street, in Jomtien with a knotted handkerchief on my head, or spot me in desperate search for a soft ice cream cone and a 99 on Walking Street, come up and say hello. I wish you all well. Thank you.
Before we go on, I'd just like to do a bit of admin and say thank you to our sponsors, Finnair, Defence International Security Services, Colliers, the Patty Mail, Tesco Lotus and that wonderful company